G'day, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another crazy dose of net zero and EV insanity in MGUY EV news for Sunday the 13th of April 2025. Be sure to follow me on the usual socials for more content, links in the description, and please make sure you're subscribed and have enabled all notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you'd like to support this channel, why not buy me a coffee? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. So at last there's been a little bit of sanity in the UK. Not a lot. I'm not saying that there has been any decent measure of sanity, but there has been a little bit of sanity. And that is the excluding of small volume manufacturers from the EV mandate. I've said this all along, that if you're going to go mad with EV mandates, then it should be based on the volume of cars that are being manufactured. Because, you know, if you look at Toyota, Ford, all the big manufacturers, they're pushing out hundreds of thousands of cars a year. And if you're going to push an EV mandate on any manufacturer at all, and I'm not saying that we should, but if you're going to, then you should avoid doing that to small manufacturers who make such a tiny contribution to emissions. So small volume manufacturers like supercar, hypercar manufacturers, small companies like Lotus, Caterham, that also can't afford to comply with these regulations. And so while they're taking with one hand by making the EV mandate come into force in 2030, they are at least relaxing it in relation to low volume. So, as the BBC reports, UK to relax electric car rules as US tariffs hit. The government has announced a relaxation of electric vehicle EV sales targets to help the car industry in the face of trade tariffs from the US. Well, it's not just trade tariffs, is it? It's the fact that nobody wants to buy EVs. A ban selling new petrol and diesel cars will still come into effect in 2030, which is less than 5 years away. Insane. But manufacturers will now have more flexibility on annual targets and face lower fines. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander told BBC Breakfast its changes were not a silver bullet, but part of the solution to responding to US tariffs. UK opposition parties said Labour's measures would not be enough to boost the car industry. They won't. US President Donald Trump has imposed a 25% levy on cars imported to the US, which is a major export market for the UK motor industry, came into force last week and is separate to a 10% tax on nearly all UK products announced by Trump on Wednesday. A consultation on the government's EV target changes ended in mid-February, but Alexander told the BBC that the government had sped up the process of introducing them in response to the tariffs. The government said it had worked with UK car manufacturers to simultaneously strengthen its commitment to the phase-out while introducing practical reforms to support industry meet this ambition. Currently, 28% of new cars sold in the UK this year must be electric. No chance of meeting that whatsoever. A target that will rise each year until 2030, when it's 100%. But manufacturers will now be given even more freedom in how they meet their yearly targets, meaning if they don't sell enough EVs in 1 year, they can make up for it by selling more in the next year. Yeah, well, that isn't going to happen, I'm afraid. They're already behind after last year. So they rushed to register a whole bunch of cars at the end of last year to meet the, whatever it was, 22% target last year, failed miserably. And so those are now, you know, they can't do that again. So it's just, the whole thing is ridiculous. But good news, smaller British firms like Aston Martin and McLaren will be allowed to keep selling petrol cars beyond the 2030 deadline, as they rightly should. All of these hypercar, supercar, exotic car manufacturers that have very small production numbers, they make no difference whatsoever to emissions, none whatsoever. So they should be allowed to keep building the cars that they're known for building. You know, Ferrari should be allowed to continue building petrol engine cars because that's what they do. I've said it before, buy the engine and the car comes free is what Enzo Ferrari said. So at least there's that. The Cybertruck. What a disaster that is. And it's just been a disaster for Tesla as well. It's the auto industry's biggest flop in decades. Elon Musk's polygonal pickup is a polarizing sales flop that missed the billionaire's volume goal by a staggering 84%. And there's no sign that things are improving. The list of famous auto industry flops is long and storied, topped by stinkers like Ford's Edsel and exploding Pinto and General Motors' unsightly Pontiac Aztek crossover SUV. Even John DeLorean's sleek stainless steel DMC-12, iconic from its role in the Back to the Future films, was a sales dud that drove the company to bankruptcy. Elon Musk's pet project, the dumpster-driving Tesla Cybertruck, now tops that list. After a little over a year on the market, sales of the £6,600 vehicle, priced from $82,000 are laughably below what Musk predicted. Its lousy reputation for quality, with 8 recalls in the past 13 months, the latest for body panels that fall off, and polarizing look, made it a punchline for comedians. Unlike past auto flops that just look ridiculous or sold badly, Musk's truck is also a focal point for global Tesla protests, spurred by the billionaire's job-slashing Doge roll and MAGA politics. It's right up there with Edsel, said Eric Noble, president of consultancy Car Lab and a professor at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California. Tesla design chief Franz van Holzhausen, who styled Cybertruck for Musk, is a graduate of its famed transportation design program. It's a huge swing and a huge miss. I do zero market research whatsoever, Elon Musk. Judged solely on sales, Musk's Cybertruck is actually doing a lot worse than Edsel, a name that's become synonymous with a disastrous product misfire. Ford hoped to sell 200,000 Edsels a year when it hit the market in 1958, but managed just 63,000. Sales plunged in 1959 and the brand was dumped in 1960. Musk predicted that Cybertruck might see 250,000 annual sales. Tesla sold just under 40,000 in 2024, its first full year. There's no sign that volume is rising this year, with sales trending lower in January and February, according to Cox Automotive. Quite frankly, I'm amazed they sold 40,000. There must be 40,000 complete morons out there with enough money to buy one of these things, because they are fugly and pointless and stupid. Sorry. Okay. And in the US, Americans are losing interest in EVs, and it's not just about Elon Musk. The percentage of Americans who own or are interested in owning an EV has dropped 8 points since 2023. So not only is it not going in the right direction, with more people wanting to buy EVs, as it should be if we're heading towards net zero by 2030 or whenever it is, but it's going backwards. Because people are starting to realize now, thankfully, that EVs are impractical, inconvenient, and a general pain in the butt to live with. Americans are less interested in buying and owning electric vehicles than they were 2 years ago, according to polling Gallup released Tuesday. The poll shows that the number of Americans who are open to buying an EV has dropped to 51% in early 2025, down from 59% in 2023. That's still quite a large number. 51% still open to buying an EV. Wow. EV makers face increasing pressures from sweeping Trump administration tariffs, the threat of repeal of consumer tax credits, and a halt to a national build-out of EV chargers. While EV sales are still on the rise from year to year, the increase has slowed in recent months. Tesla sales in particular have plummeted as Elon Musk's push to cut the federal workforce as head of the US Doge service has polarized the country. So US adults down 8%, men down 5%, women down 7%. The youngsters are down the most. Look at that, down 11%. Interesting that Republicans has actually gone up too, probably because, of the Musk factor. They think he's doing a good job with Trump in the Doge role, so they're thinking, oh, I'll buy a Tesla to go along with it. Lydia Saad, director of US social research at Gallup, said the poll doesn't show the exact reasons for the drop in interest, but she emphasized that the drop first appeared in Gallup's polling in March 2024, which is obviously before the election and before, the Trump changes to the policies. In that survey, the same number of Americans, 51%, said that they own an EV or are open to purchasing one. At that time, we weren't attributing it to politics as much as mounting concerns about EVs, she said. The practical issues of accessing charging stations, the driving range of these vehicles, those sorts of things. Yeah. Mixture, obviously. It's partly politics, partly Musk's polarizing kind of political actions and stuff that, will obviously put a lot of people off buying an EV, but there's loads of other EV brands out there. Tesla isn't the only one. I think that people are just starting to realize that, they've been sold a lie that electric cars are just a drop-in replacement for your regular petrol car, which they certainly are not. And people are starting to realize that. So that is good. Now this story is just this is the face of environmentally friendly policies, isn't it? Let's just have a look at this video. Oh my God, that's just ridiculous. Look at the intensity of that fire. It's just unbelievable. And this is the second time, as it says in the headline, battery plant explodes for second time in just 1 year as terrified residents flee debris raining down on their new build estate next door. Well, why would you buy a house next to a lithium battery recycling plant? Firefighters have worked through the night at a blaze at a battery recycling centre which broke out for the second time in a year. The Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, SRFS, sent 6 fire engines and about 40 firefighters to the scene in West Byrehill Industrial Estate in North Ayrshire when the alarm was raised at 12:42 p.m. yesterday. This was a few days... the 10th. That was a couple of days ago. On footage shared on social media, you can see huge plumes of smoke rising hundreds of meters into the air as worried homeowners look on in horror. Several nearby houses were evacuated as a precaution, but people were later allowed to return home. Phoenix battery recycling caught fire last April as well, and the fire then raged for 2 days. Well, you can go to all of these stories and videos, links in the description. Go and watch the video, and you can see it like shooting projectile batteries out of the fire. It's like a fireworks display. It really is. New Year's Eve on Sydney Harbour Bridge has got nothing on this. What a mess. Yeah. Oh, here you go. In this picture here, you can see the projectiles being launched out of the fire there. Unbelievable. But apparently this is good for the environment. If you are so drunk on Kool-Aid that you can't see what's right in front of your face anymore. Now, this is an interesting story because I think this might be one of the few times where environmentalists have remembered that they're supposed to be looking after wildlife when they're talking about bird choppers and wind farms and stuff like that, which they conveniently forget about when they're talking about net zero and wind farms and all the rest of it. Suddenly the destruction of forests and rainforests and natural habitats, they forget about that. But here we have a farm that's been ordered, as it says, to switch off wind turbines that kill endangered birds. EDF found guilty of destruction of 160 individual bats and birds, in particular lesser kestrels, at farm in southern France. EDF wind turbines on a farm in southern France have been ordered to shut down after a court ruled that they were to blame for killing scores of protected birds and bats. In what bird lovers are calling a landmark ruling, the Montpellier court held EDF Renouvelable and 9 of its subsidiaries responsible for the deaths of 160 bats and birds, especially lesser kestrels, which regularly collide with the blades despite deterrents put in place by operators. Their numbers have seen a recent worrying decline in Europe, as have those of Montagues, harriers and bats. The court ordered the shutdown of all 31 wind turbines on a plateau of garrigue or scrubland overlooking the Mediterranean for the 4-month period over the summer when the birds remain in France after migrating from Africa. Excellent, excellent. Suddenly the environmentalists are remembering what they should be protecting, the environment. I mean, the clue's in the name. So hydrogen is the one thing that net zero evangelists turn to when they realise that wind and solar is not going to be the answer. But I don't think they quite understand how hydrogen works. Hydrogen isn't free. It doesn't just grow on trees. It has to be created. It's only a way of transporting and storing energy. It has to be created somehow. And normally that is by electricity, which has to be generated somehow, which means burning coal or nuclear or wind and solar. So it's really just a pointless waste of money, hydrogen, but it seems to have got some people all hot and bothered. But here's a very interesting article that just tells it as it is on hydrogen. Kill them all. Stop wasting our money on green pipe dreams. European energy expert Samuel Furfari sums up green hydrogen, GH, perfectly. It's like burning Louis Vuitton handbags for heat. He says this because it is so very expensive. Federal law allocated $9.5 billion for GH hubs, and the Orwellian-named Inflation Reduction Act, Inflation Causing Act, expanded tax subsidies. Even with massive taxpayer subsidies, GH is a money loser. Of course it is. Leftists claim GH is a way to replace batteries for transportation. It is at least 5 times more expensive, which doesn't include all the extra costs associated with the production of natural gas, such as purifying massive amounts of water, which takes about 13 times more water than the hydrogen it produces. Desalination is an additional cost. Putting these processes anywhere they'll need to compete for water resources is just plain stupid. Infrastructure costs are astounding because we currently have none, and hydrogen is not suitable for pipelines because it escapes easily, embrittles metal and is prone to explode. It only takes a few massive hydrogen car or truck explosions to end hydrogen use for transportation, just like the Hindenburg disaster that ended hydrogen balloon travel. GH is an excessive waste of money, and it hasn't ever been made at scale, even after tens of billions spent by Europeans, Australians, and the United States. All it takes is a little critical thinking, something sadly lacking in our energy discussions at the moment, to realise that something is amiss once one understands how GH is produced. First of all, we don't have enough wind and solar to power the hydrogen plants. Second, wind and solar are part-time and weather-dependent. The GH process is required to run at all times, not just the 30% of the time the wind blows and the 20% of the time the sun shines bright enough. Making GH requires pure water to be heated to 2000 degrees Fahrenheit and is then electrocuted. This cracks the hydrogen and oxygen molecules. The hydrogen is then chilled to 420 degrees Fahrenheit below zero, turning into a liquid, and then it is finally compressed to 10,000 psi. Comparable to 3 times the average scuba tank or compressed natural gas, CNG. Without this chilling and compression, hydrogen has 1/10 the energy per volume as natural gas. Under normal compressed circumstances, hydrogen has less energy than CNG. A kilogram of this liquid hydrogen has the energy of a gallon of gas. Yeah. So can we stop talking about hydrogen now, please? It's just not the panacea that everyone pretends it is. It's never going to happen. So let's just stop talking about it. And finally, some good news to end with. Chris Bowen, he might be voted out at the next election. It looks like the Liberals are going to lose, so we're going to get another 3 years of Idiot Albo and the Greens probably in coalition, which will be even worse But at least Chris Bowen won't be there anymore. One of Albo's top lieutenants is set to be booted out of Parliament this election, according to a grim new poll. Key Labour minister could lose seat. Primary vote has plummeted to 19%. Chris Bowen, one of Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's senior ministers, is in grave danger of losing his seat at the May 3rd federal election. A new poll indicates the Climate Change and Energy Minister, Chris Bowen, is in trouble in what had always been considered a safe Labour seat of McMahon in Western Sydney. His top challenger is independent candidate and IT millionaire Matt Camanzuli. McMahon has always been held by Labour, where Mr Bowen has been the local federal MP for more than 2 decades. Yes, he's a career politician who doesn't know anything about anything else. He received almost 48% of the primary vote at the 2022 election and 59.5% after preference distribution, but a new poll has him on less than half that. The Compass poll conducted last weekend shows Mr Bowen on just 19%, far behind Mr Camanzuli, who is polling at 41%. Even more astonishing is that Mr Bowen is not only trailing the wealthy businessman, he's also behind the Liberal candidate Carmen Lazar, who polled at 20%. Well, if you're behind the Liberals, that's pretty shocking, because the Liberals are doing terribly. Anyway, it'd be good to see the back of Chris Bowen. He's an idiot. So that will be good. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks very much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Bye for now.